All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Shared Broadcast. Gosh, is this number eight,
Eight. This is
right?
number eight.
Number eight.
We're eight.
Um, Karen and Lizzie are coming at you tonight to discuss chapter 7. Lizzie, why don't you take the reins to get us going?
Okay. Well, I'm going to try to do this quickly because I ended up reflecting or I wrote a whole pile of notes that were probably unnecessary. Um, so I ended up choosing 3 passages, but 2 of them are related. It's just that I like the way that they were written and I kept flashing back and forth between the 2. The first one was from page 215. The father mentally notes this sighting in relation to a repertoire of past sightings, referencing past memory, knowledge, and understandings. This adult compares and contrasts. And then on page 219, self-perceptions of the nature of adulthood focus upon wisdom and generativity, which are strongly embedded in adult ways of seeing and knowing. And so I like those 2 because obviously they relate to how an adult thinks. And then my third passage that was slightly off from those is really, really long. Page 216, we do need to again acknowledge that our work with adult learners is very different when interacting with the semi-literate adult laborer, the non-English speaking Cambodian mother, the Chinese student, deferential to authority, the older farmer who believes he can learn only by doing, and the adult who doesn't believe she is smart enough to learn in your classroom. Each adult learner requires our best knowledge, skills, and sensitivity to his or her uniqueness, desires, and needs. So there were several areas in this chapter that I was intrigued by or could personally relate to. There were also many themes I could have addressed, and I chose these 3 quotes because I think they represent 2 of my primary perceptions with regard to what I consider an adult learner to be and how they should be approached. So the first 2 pertain to what an adult learner is versus a child. The chapter goes into many different theories and definitions, and I don't agree with half of them because to me they're presumptuous or they're culturally based. To say an adult is someone who has a job, responsibilities, and lives independently is sort of a Western ideal, but in many cases it's no longer even a Western reality. Since Social Security is in jeopardy and prices are soaring and homes are returning more to the multi-generational arrangements. So young adults stay home longer because rent is too high, and I can foresee my son living with me for eternity. Our elders are moving home with their children because managed care is expensive, so I can see my mom having to live with either me or my sister really soon now. And everyone knows insurance and Social Security don't provide enough to meet anybody's needs. So on page 218, at the end of that page, the author even notes that non-Western perspectives emphasize adulthood as recognizing the importance of being interdependent, communal, learning within communities rather than isolated and individualistic. And I think that that's pretty much where we're shifting anyway. So the quote from the story on the very first page of the chapter, "This adult compares and contrasts," pretty much sums up my idea as far as the adult learner. I consider the adult as someone past their physical teen years who has lived experience and has sort of a reservoir of experience to draw from. And then I chose the third quote that named all those different types of adults and being sensitive to their uniqueness, desires, and needs. I chose that quote because I recognized it in the population that I work with in my current job and who I technically educate every day. It emphasizes how adults come in all shapes and sizes, so to speak, and how educators need to recognize those differences, how it might affect their ability to learn. In my position, my students run from 20-somethings fresh out of undergrad with no professional experience, but few professional behaviors, but they're very, very technical savvy. And then I have my midlife students who were professionals or are currently professionals while doing the master's. And a lot of them are super entitled because they're professionals, you know. And so they like a lot of hand-holding. And oddly enough, they're usually very poor writers. And I call them Luddites. I don't know how to pronounce that.
Luddites, yeah.
They fear Canvas. If you say a class is a hybrid or online, like they grow silver streaks instantly. They freak out. And then in my doctoral program, I have elder students who are almost 80 years old who have multiple layers of professions under their belt, but they're eager to learn. And they just obviously not up to speed with technology, but they're ready to jump in and learn it. They're not afraid of it. They just want to get in there and get back to learning again.
Yeah, it's not, I like that. It's not about like the quality, it's about the experience. It's I don't know how to, like, they probably still want to do well, but they're more about the experience rather than the output.
And it's they just want to stay active and relatable, and they want to know what's going on, and they want to be kept in to everything. So, and then my faculty themselves reflect all of these layers. My graduate students and my faculty, on top of all this, they come from diverse cultures and different classes and different experiences. And so even though there are some types, I have to take into account when I'm educating all these people that they are all completely individual, different, with different groupings, and so I kind of have to, just flex myself a little bit and show patience here and then a lot of impatience over here, and try to push these guys over here. So how it's related to everything, on top of page 234, especially with consideration to some of the entitled behaviors that I regularly hit in my position, I like the idea that we should be sensitive and aware of learner preferences and weaknesses to provide instructors understandings of the needs for individualized instructional resources, and for learners to potentially focus on developing additional capabilities to their weakness or less dominant learning styles. So as educators, we need to acknowledge, adjust, and accommodate as much as we can, but the learner needs to adapt as well and not just sort of expect things to be handed to them, which a lot of my students do.
Yep.
I would like to explore more about how to help adult learners become more adaptable.
That's interesting.
I like learning about unlearning. I liked Argyris last quarter about the whole unlearning, and Meziro's transformative learning. I would like to continue studying these concepts as much as experience educates. I think it locks people into certain belief patterns unless they learn to re-examine and challenge themselves and challenge their beliefs.
Yeah.
So I'd like to basically learn how to help my adults be more adult and challenge themselves, maybe.
No, that's good. I always tell my students who are entitled or show those qualities. They're not all. I don't know if that came off wrong, but education's a two-way street. Like, I can bend, but you got to bend too, and you got to show me that you deserve, to be accommodated. So
it's like they need to own it. I don't know if there's a way to get a high school student to own it, but own your education. Take it for what it is. Make it your own. Take advantage of what you're being given.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. I got a lazy teenager in my room, so I don't know. I don't know how well it's going.
That's funny. All right, for time's sake, I'm gonna thanks for sharing. I'm gonna go to my notes. I am let's see. So the quote from chapter 7 that I picked is on page 222. It's with Knowles and Andragogy. Is that in
Andragogy?
Yeah. Knowles made a clear distinction between child schooling anchored in pedagogy and adults who were defined as active, self-directed, mature learners who most often sought knowledge through informal and self-directed learning settings. The reason why I picked this passage and why it connects to my professional experience is, as we all know, the book hasn't defined adult education, but I like this comparison to help understand what separates adult learners from young learners. In general, I think this chapter did a good job of clarifying those things. And especially with Knowles' 6 components or assumptions, were really logical to me, and I identified with several of them as an adult learner myself. Personally, throughout my time in my AEDT program, I've reflected a lot on education because of my experience in education. And it's always been, and I do it in this class too, it's always been related to my secondary experience. And I put in my in my quotes or in parentheses, I said, and I'm about to do it again now. Because I teach older secondary students. I teach mostly juniors and seniors. And no, they're not adults, even though they would like to believe that they are. I still I've seen a lot of adult learning characteristics in them that we learn about in our class. And therefore, it's caused me to not necessarily think that they're that much different. Of course, there will be learners who are more mature than others. And that might be what I recognize, or those are the students where I recognize the adult learner qualities, the ones that kind of take a little bit more ownership of their learning. But I just think that, I don't know where I went with my notes, but although many of my students who do take more ownership of their learning or kind of discover things outside of class on their own, without my lesson plans and my unit plans, they probably wouldn't have, they wouldn't be able to put the pieces together. And I think maybe with adult learners, what the book was kind of talking about, especially with the self-directed learning, is that they kind of choose their own path. And they can still kind of make their own goals and set their own goals. Of course, then they define their outcomes. So then they also get to know or recognize or reflect on if they meet those outcomes. And I just definitely think that that is something that a youth learner is not. I mean, you have to have a really advanced youth learner in order to be able to do that. And I just think a lot of that comes with the structure of learning how to manage your own life. So,
well, I think you're able to bring in secondary learners in here because they are their teens. So it's not like primary, it's not elementary school. They're not learning from scratch. They have some experience. And in high school, I'm pretty sure math does it too, but I know that the other classes really focus on teaching high school students how to be critical thinkers.
Yep.
You know, how to think beyond the subject that they're being given.
Problem solving.
Problem solving, and just thinking conceptually when you're given a history assignment, what else does that link to, you know, and the writing, what else does that link to? And how do you personalize it? I mean, they do annotations on their essays and their writings that relate to their real life. So I think that that's why you get the feeling every once in a while that you can bring in a little bit of adult learning into it. They're almost there.
Almost there.
Almost there. Not quite. Almost there.
Yeah. So I said, what's important for adult educators, you know, and how does it impact the implementation of adult education programs? I said it's important to give adult learners the space to explore their own interests within the spectrum of expectations outlined in a course. I think classes that I've taken at Seattle University have given us that space and that openness to explore a topic that we are interested in, and that flexibility is nice. I think that adult learners do appreciate that. And then what would I like to learn more? So I'm planning on taking course design next semester. If I decide to take courses at all, because I just had a baby 5 days ago. So I'm curious to learn how to plan a course that provides a little bit more flexibility to my students. I don't know if that's possible in a secondary education setting, but again, if I'm trying to push myself to get into the adult learning setting, maybe it would be nice to learn how to have course outlines and course goals, yet still have several different access entries and ways to obtain those or show competency on those standards. So that is something I know myself as an educator, I'm pretty controlling, and I like things to be logical in a certain way, and that just goes to my math background. So I think learning and pushing myself out of my comfort zone would be good. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think we have 2 minutes left on our timer, but I don't know. I feel like we can keep it short this week for our viewers.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Thanks everyone for coming. Bye.